off like that. That's a great way. This is live on YouTube right now. So we're live on YouTube. So I just dig right up in there. Dig right. I remember when I was a kid doing the magic trick. Look, I could dig it all the way up in there. All the way to the knuckle. Now I do that for real.
Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Hey, it's this weather, man. I can't stand this stuff. It's been terrible lately. I'm just irritated with everything. I think
I still got a big pile of snow, man, outside from where I shoveled off my deck.
Oh,
I'm just waiting for it to go away because we're like, my son's trying out for soccer, just wants to get into it. So I'm really hoping this weekend it goes away, but I don't really want a lot of rain this weekend.
Hi, Katrina. You guys still have snow up there?
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, I skied like in my backyard. There's a ski hill. Like I go right out, like I'm in a, it's called a copropriétaire in French, but it's like a bunch of like townhouses all on a road that kind of go up the side of it. It's a very small ski hill, and we can just go at the back and ski. And so we went on Saturday. Obviously, the snow's super wet and like heavy because I was skiing with no gloves. It was warm, and I hurt my knees because like it's so aggressive. It's very muscular, but it was fun. You know, last ski of the year probably. It's done now, but there's still tons of snow on the ski hill. There'll be snow on there till probably the end of June on the ski hill. Like it just because it's so thick, it takes so long to melt. And it's the rain that melts the snow. It's not the sun, which is what people often think it's the sun, but it's the rain that will wash away the snow. It's not really the sun that does it.
Shit. Hold on. I might have just messed up the whole live.
Can't we just redo it?
On Instagram. Hold on. There was someone on there just being rude, and I was trying to take them off, and it did not go through. Oh, there it is. I think people. I don't know. We'll see.
They were calling me bald. Is that what they're doing?
Hey, Eric, how are you? No, it was just someone just being rude in general, and I was like, oh, let me try and block this guy, and it did not go through. I don't know. Now it's saying people are in there. Anyway, I'm sorry. Katrina was saying that it was high 60s by her. I'm like tired. We had hail and everything the other day. I'm just tired of it. So in the spirit of ignoring all that nasty weather that's outside, let's go with the important stuff. Hi, everyone who's here. I'm here with my good buddy, Ryan, of Cochrane Kayak. Ryan he's my guy, man. So Ryan is going to start off by telling us the same thing I ask every week because it's such an important question. Dude, what's your origin story? Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony. So it's really simple. I went to this science fair at one point, and I got bit on the neck by a spider. And all of a sudden, I started having these special abilities.
That explains the funny look on your face. I mean, well, that's just normal.
No. I wish, how fun would it be to be Spider-Man?
I went to Maker Camp once, and I got bit by this guy named Tony, and that's why I have hair going out of my ears.
You can't trust that guy.
No.
He doesn't like anything that has to do with a tent. And when you're sleeping in a tent, you got to be careful.
No, I think he does. I just think he doesn't like the Gatorade bottles. Anyway, what is your...
Yes, origin story.
And let's come back to this. You have a really unique, important story, and I want to talk about this. Let's go with you, because this is really cool.
I mean, important. I appreciate that, but So basically, I got into woodworking when I was a kid. Okay, my father put me in Scouts. We actually, one of the first projects I ever built was a dog sled. We didn't even have a dog that pulled it. So kind of looking back, it's really funny because kind of looking back, my dad just wanted to do projects with me and do things together. And we were in like a basement that had it was a dirt basement floor. We were building this thing and we steam bended. We did all this like different stuff. And I don't really remember all the techniques we used, but I remember that feeling. I was very young. And then we took it on a trip. My uncle had a snowmobile, for all those people that don't know what that is, if they're in the south, sled that goes across the snow. And we used that as our dog sled. And we did a little trip, and that was fun. But then I kind of got into sport, and my parents never really had a lot of money, so they wanted to put me into sport because that was an opportunity that they didn't really have. I got into kayaking, which is kind of funny, in
Right.
a
It's
small
weird.
town.
I was gonna say that's kind of weird in Canada. That just doesn't seem to be like a huge.
It's funny that you say that, but canoeing is obviously one of the most iconic Canadian things. Okay, so canoeing and kayaking is just an extension of canoeing.
Okay.
The funny thing is, I spent most of my time in the United States, in Florida, when I grew up, and we'll get to that. Um, but I got into this sport. Somebody showed up at my school. There was like, a few people in this tiny club at this tiny town, and I said to my parents, "Can I join?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, let's try it out." My parents were like, "Great, he's getting away from hockey, so expensive." Little did they know they're going to enroll me in this sport that has a $5,000 kayak, and the kayak paddles are $500 each because everything's carbon fiber. Um, uh, but that was further along. But I took off with it, and I really liked it, and I just wanted to do it. So the funny part about that is we always used to do camping, hunting, and fishing. And I was always in the woods, and I was always seeing trees, and I was always seeing them from a different perspective. So when I was kayaking, it was the same thing. I was seeing the trees from that perspective of being on the water and being flat. And it's a very, very different perspective for anybody that's ever experienced it. They understand. Swimming and kayaking, you're at water level, and you're experiencing nature in a different way versus like up in the air or on a big boat or something like that. So I fell in love with trees, and I started to wanted to learn about trees. So I wanted to learn about species and leaves and what wood does what and what is better for each type of project you want to do. Fast forward, I started to get very good in my sport. Um, I ended up going to the Junior World Championships in 2001, where on the way back, I was stuck in New York City, well, Newark, New Jersey, one of the last flights out in 2001. And we were one of the flights diverted to Montreal. For Americans that know, all the flights were diverted to different cities in Canada. And so we actually have the last picture from the air that's known of one of the towers, and it was in the New York Times and a few other reputable news let's say stations. But after that, I kept going, I kept pushing. I had a few tough years, but in 2016, in 2012, I made my first Olympic team. In 2009, I made my first World Championship team. Before that, I was doing World Cups and World events and Pan American events.
Yeah.
So I ended up winning in 2011 in Guadalajara. I won a gold medal at the Pan American Games, which is it's a third biggest sporting event in history, after World Cup and Summer Games.
Okay.
And so that was wonderful. That was a really kind of wonderful
Yeah.
thing. But that actually made my qualification to the Olympic Games. So then that summer we went and we placed third at one of the World Cups, and we placed fifth at the other, and we were in the running for a medal basically in 2012. Unfavorable conditions for my partner and I, but we still made the final, and we placed seventh in 2012. That's a pretty, looking back,
Yeah.
I'm proud of that result. And in
Okay.
2016 we went again to the Olympic Games. So I've competed at two Olympic Games as a sprint kayaker on a tandem event, which is a double kayak. So that's kind of the main part of my origin story. After my retirement from the Olympics, I tried to go to 2020. With injuries and being an older athlete, I was plagued by injury and politics and other things we don't need to get into.
But you're old. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. Is you're old.
35 years old. That's an old
That,
for an athlete,
yeah,
So
that's an old man. Yeah.
yeah, and that was, now I'm 41. So then I dove straight in after that. I actually, like, my wife said she was kind of concerned, but she's like, I've always admired how quickly you bounce back from any situation that could be bad, potentially bad for you. Because I was like sitting on the couch and I'm like, okay, I play a video game. Actually, I was playing Zelda. You know, having a few beer because it's like the first time in years and years and years that I really had a vacation. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I love woodworking. This opportunity came up. I took it. I went to this company. The company, I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, slabs. They're doing slab tables. They're doing epoxy work. This is great. Because at the time, I was really into watching Cam from Blacktail Studios when he was just starting out. And, YouTube was a big thing for me. I spent, after I finished my psychology degree while I was an athlete, I went into watching YouTube like as a way of learning woodworking and techniques. And I was applying those techniques at home in a very small space. So I basically, it kind of spitballed from there, and I got into this company, and I was surprised when I walked in. They were using nothing wrong with Makitas. Don't get me wrong. They were using little tiny Makita finish sanders to try to flatten tables that were not flattened.
That's impossible.
They
So
were
how much,
like
how much experience did you have now? You said you had a little shop at home.
with slabs, none. Okay, with slabs, none. But I took the time to understand wood movement and how wood works, and understanding that the table should be flat on both sides, finished on both sides. It needs to breathe the same way on both sides. All these little things that create potential for success. Because as we know, wood, it's going to do what it's going to want to do eventually, no matter what.
Right.
So I kind of walked in. I was like, oh wow! And the guy that owned the company, he admired me for the fact that I spoke to him with respect, and I also, when I came in and I said, look, I really think we should invest in this tool, and he goes, why? And I was like, it's funny you should say that. And then I give boom, 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 boom. This is why. And in 3 years, it's going to save you money because of this and this and this. And he's like, oh, so it's a no-brainer. I cannot say no. A lot of people go up, and when they, especially in a job site, they're like, oh, like, we could really use a new drill. And the foreman or the boss goes, why? Well, I mean, the other one's not really working the same way. So is it still working? Well,
Right.
yeah. You've got to come up with a real plan and kind of a pitch. So when you're a salesperson or you're trying to sell something to somebody, you have to have all your information, all your knowledge at hand. So I did that, and that was easy for me. So we switched from these little tiny finished sanders and Makita trying to flatten tables to a electric hand plane.
Okay.
First step. Second step, and I went slowly with this guy because he was a little bit old school, still a good friend of mine. And we went to a woodpecker's flattening mill because he didn't want to go full automated with CNC because it was too expensive. So we went with the woodpecker's flattening mill. I set all that up. I did a torsion box table, and we were sitting there flattening, back and forth with a Festool router, with the big Festool router and a big bit.
How much business was he doing per year?
So on that side of the business, this business did both importation, where we imported tables from India that were pre-finished, and we did a lot of research into suppliers to make sure they were good, because there's a lot of bad things coming out of there too, just as much as there is good. And we made sure that there was like very minimal problems with tables with joints. So they would come prepackaged, and we would just sell them. Okay. That was 80% of the business, but manufacturing inside of the country was 20% of the business, roughly. I'm just throwing out numbers. But the profit margins on what we did at home were really good because the owner, his wife was a Thai woman, and they had good connections. So we were importing from Thailand raw slabs and drying them ourselves.
Okay.
So our landed cost, for anybody that understands what that means, a landed cost means after your price, after your shipping, and after all your drying and everything, our landed cost was very good. So we could create good margins. We were lucky with that. So we were making about 5 tables a week.
Okay.
A new person came into the business. I made him a table, and it was an unbelievable table. And then I made shelves, and I made a bunch of things. And then he asked me, the old owner decided to sell, and he asked me to come on with him as a partner. And I did. I'm no longer with them. There's some sad stories there, and we can maybe get into that if we have some time later. But I moved on from that, but it never stopped me from being a woodworker, being a maker, being a creator. I developed contacts in epoxy in so many different companies, and I've never burned a bridge in my life. Good friends with Total Boat. I developed contacts in the CNC world. Obviously, I'm
Right.
set up Onefinity behind me, all kinds of
One
different
came
machinery.
in earlier and said hi, by the way.
Who?
Matt said Onefinity stopped in here and said hi.
Oh,
Matt from
nice.
Hidden
Hey.
Mustache came in too. So I mean, it sounds like you really got a lot of I want to say education working there. Not only did you bring in new tools, but you also learned all this stuff, and you got the people who are going to help you grow into what you're doing now.
Well, I think I've said this to you probably more times than I can count. Maybe you remember, maybe you don't. Um, there's only two things in my opinion, and I think that's just standard knowledge that monetize. And we all know about monetization because of YouTube, but there's only two things in this world that monetize, and that is knowledge and connections. So the knowledge that I gained from doing all this stuff and learning sometimes from mistakes and sometimes just because I over prepared and then learned I don't need to prepare that much because I spent more time preparing than I needed to. And I
Right.
found a happy medium and the connections. So the first thing I did when I got into this journey is I dove into Instagram and I dove into the community, and it's been that's probably one of the best parts of the journey is creating this environment, especially for me being in French Quebec and being an Anglophone. So I don't really speak a lot of French. Especially during the pandemic, I reached out. That's kind of when I met you and a few other people um, through that journey. And the things that I've learned from you and from others on here, that I mean, that could fill an ocean. And that's the important thing about it. And I hope that I've been able to fill an ocean for other people too. And that reciprocation has created such a wealth of knowledge. And this idea of I'm getting a little sidetracked with this, but I want to say this because it's important. That idea of competition for competition's sake is absolutely ridiculous. This is coming from a two-time Olympic athlete
I
that
was going to
has
say that's
competed
crazy.
at the highest level. There are so many people that want to buy a table. Now, I live in a city of 800,000 people. That's small. But if there's 10 table makers and we all sell a table to every single person, and then their kids are going to grow up, all of us can retire in a day if everyone bought a table all at once.
Right.
So it just doesn't make sense to have this idea of like, oh no, don't help each other. Look, if you have a project you're working on, I'll help you out, and when I need help, please come and reciprocate. If they don't help out, you know what, no loss. Next time
Well,
they reach out, I'm busy, sorry.
right.
You know?
Well, it's all about the community, and that's what's great about Instagram and
Community
YouTube.
over competition.
Yeah, there's a lot of community. I love that, and I agree with you completely. I've learned a lot from everybody. RS Tools was in here, and I learned
Awesome.
about his stuff from you. You
Yeah,
know. So anyway, I
we
mean,
want
it's
to go
good.
into that. There's a good story there with I think you know about it too with
Talk
his
about it. Like I know that thing came in clutch. It was so
oh,
helpful.
so right
Oh,
before make
wait. So for anybody who doesn't know the RS Tools thing that we're talking about, that's yeah. Good, perfect. And we can talk about. I want to talk about your space there too.
Okay, well, let's dive into that first, and then let's go into that afterwards. I think it's a natural way to go into it.
Yeah,
So I can give a quick little tour if everybody is
yeah.
interested in
So
that.
so let me intro this. Ryan has a very small shop. It's in your house, right? Where is it in your house?
So we're actually in the basement. This was actually a TV room in the bottom at the bottom of the stairs. It was open, an open like room. And what we did is I actually started, and this is okay. Quick story on that. I started in the back room, which was a ski waxing room. It was a 4x8 room. You wax your skis, and you go out the back door and you go to the ski hill.
Sorry, you got me concerned with the waxing. I wasn't sure what type of waxing you were doing. Oh, here.
Well, I
Anyway,
mean,
we're gonna avoid that. We're gonna
maybe a couple different. We don't know. We don't know. Let's just leave it at that. So that was a 4x8 shop, and I remember I was on a live listening to Izzy Swan, and I typed in like, "Oh, I have a 4x8 shop," and he was like, "Lots of amazing things can happen in a 4x8 shop." He knew a guy that made Windsor chairs in a 4x8 shop his whole life, and he was like 80 some years old and still making them in the same shop. So naturally, though, I had too many tools in there, and I had to move. So my father came, and we partitioned a wall and made this little space to kind of keep the dust out and the noise out a little bit. And I created this space down here. So that's why, if anybody knows me, I have this wonderful carpet on the floor to protect the hardwood floors underneath. I have carpets and I have mats everywhere to protect the floor. It sucks for rolling tools.
Yeah.
Um, I was a big fan of rolling tools at first, but I feel like when you're in a very small shop, rolling tools is not a good thing. Doesn't work. So one or two, that's fine. But I quickly learned that I had to adapt and change the way that I did things, because this is 160 square feet and a lot of wood get waxed in that room. Thanks, Tony. Um,
Matt from Wood and Mustache said, "Wax all the things."
awesome. Wax
I,
that mustache, buddy.
I disagree with you there, though. I don't care the size of your shop. Have everything on wheels, because everything needs to be able to move, and you need to be able to
I have
enlarge.
nothing on wheels.
Nope.
I think it's the opposite for a very small shop, because, well, yes and no. It depends on what you need to do. So you'll see with what I need to do.
Yeah.
I have my bandsaw on wheels,
Yeah.
and that is actually the
All right.
only thing in this shop that's on wheels.
So
So let's give you a quick.
So yeah, take us on a tour. Show us around, because you're just the thing behind you. You're just getting set up, and
Quickly, that people have to understand that I actually came from a 35,000 square foot shop, where I was working, and now I'm doing everything in a small shop. I'm not doing tables. The largest thing I can do is a coffee table. So I'm going to flip you around, and I'm going to show you. Can I flip this around? Where do I flip this around?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Just turn it around.
There we go. Nope, that's the wrong one. Surface rear camera. So this is my front. This is the door that I come in. Okay. So I have some layout tools. We won't talk about what they are, but I come in that door, and I have a quick tool wall here. Get this. It's backwards for me now. And then basically, this is the back of the shop. So that is a journeyman CNC. Underneath is a laser that I have to set up with with the collection going. Man, I gotta go the right way. Up into the window there. I don't know if you can see it up there. And then there's another laser there, the X tool. I have the bandsaw, the standing bandsaw there with the dust collector there. I also have a dust collector here. I have another Festool dust collector as well. This is actually my old table saw that's not mine anymore. I'm borrowing it from my friend. I have a miter saw station here. That I have set up, and I at first didn't really love it, but now it's very important. I'm going to step back because obviously it's really hard to show you all this because it's a small shop.
Yeah.
That's my alleyway there. So that's the door, like you can see. That's my
Mm-hmm.
alleyway right there. Okay. This is another workbench. That's a Festool workbench. This is my like glue up station. I'm going to move you so you can see that. That's the RS system there. In the back, I'll pull you in a little bit. This is my epoxy section. It's a 4 foot by 8 foot section. Sorry, 4 foot by 8 foot, 2 foot by 4 foot section. And I have the pump station there. I have everything I need for the epoxy all right there. And then I have some extra wood storage above.
Wow.
I also have some wood storage up there, and I have some wood storage in the back. So everything, and by the way, underneath here is all of there's Festool tools there. There's some tools in there. There's cabinetry here, all with different things in them that are useful to what I need to do. And I have everything. And if I don't, I don't keep it anymore. There's no point in keeping it.
That's impressive. So I know that you just did, what was it, 150?
It was 140 commission, but it turned out to be more like 146 or something like that, because I made 2 errors at the start, and then I made some extras in case. So I did 100, and I'm gonna get. You know what? I have a sample here.
And Seng just said you got structure and organization, though, Ryan. Great setup.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. It is. It's
You really
well
have to
set up and laid out.
So I made, so this was the design that the company came up with. It was more walnut here, a piece of maple, a piece of cherry, a piece of maple, and a piece of walnut. They had it had to have a juice groove in it. Okay. It had to have a logo on each side because they had 2 logos for the same company. And I had to make these, and these were 12 by 18 inches.
Okay.
12 by 18? Yes, I think it's 12 by 18. I don't have my measuring tape right there. Let me check.
Doesn't
It
matter.
was 12 by 18. So I had to do 140 of these for the company. No, it was 120 and 140 is what I made. That's what it was. And
Okay.
I started this kind of deal right before Maker Camp, which for people that know that, it was the 10th of October. So I started working this deal a little bit, and then I got the final approval, I think just at the end of October. They needed these for the Christmas party. This was a corporate gift.
Okay.
So it was for all of the employees, and then they wanted a few extra for special clients.
Yeah.
I didn't have a CNC at the time. Onefinity we were in the process of getting it set up, and they were sending me, but I didn't have it. And all of my juice grooves, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I was like, I love to do it on the CNC. Creates a perfect juice groove. I remember I reached out to you and I was like, how do I do this, Logan? Like, what do I need to do? There's a few things that I'm kind of like a little bit shaky on. And even though I've done tons of different things in the woodworking community, we still reach out to our friends, even if you're sure you know what you're doing, you just need a little reassurance. Got the juice groove nailed down. And then it was okay. So then I basically what I did was I cycled it, and I realized I need to make this much money on each board, blah, blah, blah. We can go into that. That's an interesting discussion afterwards. I set up a system. So just outside the door, I had a pile where I had all my pieces pre-cut. So I had the company for $2 extra a board foot, surface, almost fully surfaced, S3S,
Okay.
all the boards, okay? And for people that don't know, S3S is both faces and one side. So I could run that through the table saw and get what I needed. It wasn't perfect, okay, because it's $2 a board foot here, but I had pretty good prices, and I calculated that I could not spend the time to do that because as soon as I got back from Maker Camp, I took a full-time job. So I was like, because I took this job on, I can't fail in it. So I was working evenings and weekends. I had this company do it for me, and I still made a very good profit. I would bring.
Wait, come back 1 second. I want to hear about, because where we started with this was the RS tool setup and how that was important and what that is.
Absolutely.
And only because I think that was such a key part to you being able to do that. Although I love the idea too of having them surface and plane everything for you.
So this goes back to the community. Basically, I had them surface and plane everything. I knew I was in a little bit of trouble, so I reached out to him. I saw it came across my feed. I saw it, and I was like, I bet you that could save me a lot of time. I reached out to him, and I asked him if he's interested in doing some work together. And this is why the community is so wonderful. Boom, message back. Hey, man, I'm going to get it out to you as quickly as you can. I know it sounds like you really need it. I told him I was doing 140 cutting boards, and he was like, oh my God. So I basically did these in 3-foot sections because this setup can do 4 feet. So I did it in 3-foot sections, and I would cut them in half, and I would have 2 cutting boards per glue up.
Perfect.
So I was waking up in the morning, and I was doing a glue up, going to work, coming back, doing 2 glue ups, waking up, doing a glue up, and I would do that, repeat that process, and then I would get 10 blanks set up, which is 20 boards. Then as the next one's gluing, I'm running them through the planer, I'm getting them surfaced, and I'm cutting them to final length, and I'm doing the juice groove. As some of them are running through the laser. So literally, there was something on every single time with the RS tool, like there was something on the glue board, there was something in the laser, there was my sander running,
Yeah.
or the juice groove running.
How often did you the breaker?
I didn't, because luckily we had an issue with our bathroom, which is on the other side of the wall behind me. And when we did that, we had to open up a bunch of walls. So my father-in-law and I ran some extra breakers in here. So I have now 2 15s in here and a 20. So I was able to run everything independently. It's lifesaver. Now I actually I could run a 320, a 240 in here, sorry, if I wanted to. so I kind of had that cycle going,
Yeah,
and it was honestly it was hard. I mean, this is 160 square feet.
yeah, yeah,
So I don't know, anybody wants to look back in my feed, they'll see there's a stack of cutting boards on my
yeah.
dining room table. My kids got involved, my wife got involved, everybody got involved. This was a lifesaver because we really needed that money at the time, coming into Christmas and me losing a job and kind of going into a new job, and transitioning is always a little bit tricky. Now I'm back in sport. I'm actually in like kind of in baseball, multi-sport, which is kind of funny because that's not my sport, but I love it. But I get to create woodworking projects and found that love again for it. But without the community, without the help, without the support from people like you that were like, "Come on, brother, you got this," and like, "Oh, man, are you sure you can do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can do it." And I've always in my life done better under pressure. So I'm really I love that. And yes, it's a lot. 140 cutting boards in a 160 square foot shop. It's crazy. It's crazy. You'd have to be crazy to accept that. But I will do it again in a heartbeat. I'll do it once a year. I won't
Yeah.
do it every
Well, I
day.
mean,
I won't run that as a full-time business. Um,
no, but at the time, especially with everything that was going on, that was a lifeline, to use a nautical expression that you may be familiar with.
obviously.
So, all right, yeah. So, speaking of which, let's take a side trek here, side quest, and let's talk about Maker Camp because you mentioned that. That's where you and I first was that 2 years ago
That's
now.
where the bromance began. It began.
Dude, that was hilarious. So Ryan was messaging me, and I said I was going to go, and he's like, "Oh, I'll meet up with you the first night," and I didn't know anyone else that was going. So he met me at the bar, took me up, and it was weird because when I checked in at Maker Camp too,
Can
they
I
didn't
just
even.
stop you for a second? Can we backtrack for a second? Because the first time we met online was you. I had first like found your site and I had said, "Wow!" Like you were like doing a jig, and I said, "You're the jig master," and I said something about you getting up on a table and doing a jig, and then you posted, and I was like, "Isn't that something special that I make a little joke and this guy responds to me?" Because at the time my account was quite small. I think I don't know how big it was at that time. Um, and you did that, and I was like, you know what? That's wonderful. That's another part of the community that like people coming back and like having fun, and then that's where
Yeah,
we started chatting. So, but sorry to interrupt you, but
no, 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 no. I mean, this is all about you anyway. Um, so we got to hang out and had a great time, and then that was we will. I want to say this. If Tony is still here, he knows this. Um, yes, Eric, you have to come. You will love it. Um, I, I
100%.
I will say this for everyone out there. I promise that Ryan and I will never, and I'm gonna say this right off the bat, dude. You and
Do
I will
karaoke
never,
again.
never, never. There's no way. It's against the law. Um, we should not be allowed to do that. So that was hilarious. We tried to sing "Baby Got Back." It did not work out.
And on my defense, you were like, I need somebody, and I was like, I got your back, and then it was just like, no, we
And
don't
then
we don't know what we're doing here.
no, we did not. So anyway, so this past year though, I love what you did at Maker Camp. And thankfully Harvey was there to help out, talk about that because that was just
Absolutely.
killer.
So massive thank you to Harvey. So I worked really hard on that
Wait,
project.
love is stronger than tight bond.
What's that?
Clearcraft said love is stronger than tight bond.
Absolutely. So if
All right.
only we could put two pieces of hard wood together with love, they would never come apart.
I got softwood. That's my cannon. All right. Anyway, no more of the cannon. I got to talk about that too.
You do. You should.
Tony
It's a
said, "Thank God I
wonderful
missed it." That's because Tony went to bed and was sleeping with his Gatorade bottles. So talk about this year with Harvey.
So I'm going to quickly go to the first year that I was there. You were there, but I never met you, and I dove in to try to meet as many people as I could because I was a lone wolf just driving down. The only person I knew was Pat Lapp. good friend of mine. And I just tried to meet as many people as I could. The first person I actually met was Patrick Wenzel. And then so I just kept meeting people as many as I could. The second year is when you and I met. And I had talked to Austin, the owner of the camp, and I was like, I'd like to get more involved. And he's like, dude, just let me know what you want to do. Let's try to make something happen. So I said, I noticed this year that there was a lot of kids. So Dave from 3D DIY Dave showed up with his kid. Adrian had her kid there. There's a few other people that had their kids there, and I just felt like they didn't have anything to do. And I said, well, I have that chopstick kit at home, and I was able to do that with the kids. Like it's just it's
Yeah.
a hand tool, so it's got a sharp blade, so you got to be careful, but it's underneath and it's pretty safe for tool wise. Obviously you still have to be careful. So I was like, I reached out to Harvey. I said, look, and I reached out to the Maker Camp organization as well, and they said, I love it. We want kids to be involved. So actually it ended up this year there was a kids hour, and there was quite a few people involved. I know Total Boat was one of the big ones involved. I was involved. There was, I think, flint napping was involved, maybe some other work or something. There was a couple different things. There was eight different people involved, and this was wonderful because kids and there was a line during kids hour. They all wanted to be there.
There was a line all the time with you.
Absolutely. And I was actually only supposed to work 3 hours a day, but I couldn't. I was like, I can't turn these people down. This was fun, and I was enjoying it. And so this year, I have not confirmed that fully with Harvey, but I know that they're probably on board. We're going to be back again, probably, hopefully in a bigger way, to make it more capable for everyone to get their sticks done. So I don't have to be there till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. So I can have a little fun and go do a few events too.
I mean, and I'm going to say this, like you were, without a doubt, the hardest working man there. I mean, I brought you food because you didn't have time to go eat. I was like, dude,
you were a godsend, man, and that's why I would say without a doubt, I'm a ride or die, because I don't think I could get through some of that stuff without you. And it's sad for me that I only get to see you once a year. Hopefully that changes throughout the future. But
Well, Type A Furniture said Ryan was a machine, dude. It was amazing, but the kids really enjoyed it. The adults enjoyed it.
For me,
the kids, and I think that, I think that was a lot of fun, and I'm glad you had the opportunity to do that.
And I'll just a quick little shout out to Alyssa. I don't know if she's going to be listening there. Jesse's daughter.
Oh God, yeah.
She was amazing. So she came in. I taught her how to do her chopsticks. And then I turn around because I'm working with one kid. She's teaching the other kid. So I'm like, I was like, okay, let's see where this is going to go. She took every word I said and literally repeated it. She was teaching other kids. I was like, oh my God, this is wonderful. She was something special. And
13. For everyone who knows, Building Jessie, her daughter was there, and she was. My son wasn't there, but we had a chopstick. Oh, nice. Yeah. So, but Building Jessie, her daughter came to the camp with her, and that's who he's talking about. And she really did help out. You should talk to her and see if she wants to try and help out with you this year.
I'm gonna drop it right here. My plan is, and hopefully she doesn't hear it, but I would like her to be a special instructor for the kids hour.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense. I love that.
And I think for kids to see that too, it would be not only that they're like, oh, cool, I get to make something, but oh, I get to be part of something too. I think for me, just the next generation is so important, and kind of teaching them how to lead the way, and create not only just things, but create the kind of the self-confidence to do things even if you might fail, because honestly, like the amount of times I failed, like let's go back to sport quickly. Everyone's like, oh my God, you went to 2 Olympics, you did so much cool stuff. I've lost more races than I ever won. One of my good friends from back in the day when I was an athlete, he's a German. He's probably one of the most decorated male Olympic athletes in kayak history. And one of the things he said too, and I always said this, is he lost more than he ever won. and he's
Yeah.
won 5 Olympic medals. Okay, this guy lost. I've lost way more races, but I've learned from every loss. And so the idea of losing, getting back in the boat and going, I'm going to figure out the next race. It's always about the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, or fixing what went wrong in that situation. So it's the same thing in woodworking, man. It's the same thing.
I was going to say it's exactly. There's a direct correlation.
100%. Business, same thing in business, same thing in anything you do, any job, anything you take on. That attitude, the attitude will get you so much further. When I became a business owner, I hired only attitude. I hired only one woodworker that went to school for woodworking. Okay, now this is kind of stereotyping.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it actually occurs. That person had the hardest time. I hired people that knew very little about woodworking, and I taught them everything on site. And we're not talking about cutting fine joinery and stuff here. We're talking about slab work where there's a lot of sanding involved. There's a lot of process of epoxy and stuff like that. This stuff is a little bit different. So I was able to teach them this, and there was 2 or 3 very successful people because of that.
Well, I like. There's a couple of things I want to bring up, but I like the correlation, and I think it's important. And I was going to take that same almost side quest when I was doing Taekwondo with the family. Like we all went and studied together, and I love that because there were kids there who learned, uh, from their mistakes and everything else, and the way it all brought together. My favorite thing is this guy is a business genius. He had kids as instructors, so kids who had gone through and were black belts. They were the kid instructors, and like the amount of confidence these kids had from that is amazing.
100%.
Clearcraft said, I want to put together a birdhouse workshop for the kids at my kids' school, batch them out on the Onefinity. I love that and have a blast. I mean, that would be fantastic if you could do that and take that in and do that as a class. All right.
Onefinity is the Onefinity is definitely any CNC really, but Onefinity is definitely the way to go for being able to batch something out like that in a smaller space. 100%.
Matt, I actually have my black belt, and that's when I had to get my knee surgery because I did a flying. One of my Matt said he didn't know I did TKD. So when I did my belt test, we had to do a creative break, and I combined judo that I used to do, and I did a flying hammer through the block, and I was practicing my throws, and wound up having to get knee surgery because of it. I'm an old man.
And for anybody out there that I know that this question is definitely burning in lots of people's minds. Yes, I can kick Logan's ass because at Maker Camp he falls asleep before me.
What? Yeah, well, that's true. Actually, this year I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. You're usually the one that's like, "Hey, we're going to bed. Like you've had enough." I'm like, "Yeah,
This
good."
year was
Yeah.
different. Listen, the first
No, we
year
were both. We were. Oh, the first
yeah,
year we were trouble.
yeah. So this year I was like, no, I'm getting up. I got to be able to get some sleep.
Well, I was demoing, so it was even better.
I refuse. I'm going to say this flat out. So this year, Ryan and Dan, we were all. It's because he eats. We were all in a yurt, so we were the yurt park boys. No Sharpies, and I'm never going to sleep in a yurt again. Not like that. Forget it.
I mean, unless we have an industrial heater, right? No.
Yeah. I'm sleeping inside.
It was fun. It was fun though. It was fun.
So, and actually, let's take a side quest again because Mark Adams is in the chat on the other side.
Hey, Mark.
And he's going to be my guest next week. So Mark's going to be, but he is a workhorse. So one of the great things, anybody who hasn't been to Maker Camp yet, one of the key parts about going is getting your picture taken by Mark Adams. He is an absolute genius with the camera. Like this guy's amazing. So
even makes us look good. The two of us. It makes us look good.
Well, I mean, I always look good. He said nobody sleeps at Maker Camp, but Mark is the workhorse. Like that guy, you were going nonstop there. Oof. All right.
He is a staple. He is a staple not only at Maker Camp but in the maker community for sure.
Yeah. So, all right, let's come back to you. So, you're no longer kayaking for the Olympics.
I did go to
Well,
the
you do it,
national championships this summer.
are you? And
No, I
you
did. I did. I did.
yeah.
After I was let go from a job, I decided, let's jump back in, and I got back into that world for a short period of time, and that was wonderful. That was a good thing for me, but I don't want to
Well,
really get too much into that.
talk about what was special about it. You got to share that.
Well, okay, so I quickly started training, and I joined this young group of guys that needed a fourth person for their quad, and we went out and I was out of shape when I started. I got in so quickly. I literally was vomiting every workout, every single morning, throwing up, and just working as hard as I could, which inspired these guys to go, man, if this guy's doing this, I should be working harder. These guys had never won a gold medal at the national championships before, and we went out in the summer. We were not too far from you. We were in Niagara Falls.
Yep.
That's where we had it on Canadian side,
I couldn't come. I
and
was away that week.
we won the quad event for the junior men's, and I said this is super special to me because I had never won that before. We were at the banquet, and they came up to me and they said, "You are a liar." And I said, "What are you talking about?" So this is how I know I'm an old man, because they said 21 years ago you won this trophy with you, another person named Justin Cochrane, who's my brother, Mark DeYoung, who I went to the Olympics with, and another guy. And I said, oh, 21 years ago. So they made the big joke. They said, "Okay, well, if your next comeback, if you do that, you realize you're going to be 62."
So you're going to be Tony Pep's age. Oh no, Tony's older than that. He's like 70. That's funny. Yeah. 70, 80.
I'm gonna have some DMs after this for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. So
no, it was a special summer, and then that got me that transitioned me right back into creating stuff. So that was it was an important step in my life.
So one of the questions I always like to ask is, how has your journey as a content creator changed how you make things?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so I'm going to dive into the business side of it. Okay, if that's cool. So, I love making stupid things. Like when I say stupid things, I mean like overly fancy, creative things. If Annette from 831, I think 851 Woodworks 851
531.
531 531. I always miss it anyway. So she was always laughing at me, saying, "Oh, you're so fancy. Everything you do is so fancy." I love that. Okay. So I make these. I've done it at Maker Camp. I make these like Star Bond caddies. I have one here. I'm going to grab it for you. They're overly ridiculous because they're like, it's epoxy and wood. It's like a river and it's a matching, and then there's, it's a little bit too much for what it is. I can't market that. So let's go into that aspect of it, because I create this. I will create it for a place like Maker Camp where I can give it away as a gift, and it's wonderful and fantastic. I will create this for friends and family if they need it. But if I was to try to sell this, and Tony thinks he still looks better than both of us. Tony, keep lying to yourself, buddy. If I was to market this, it would be a failing business. And you're smiling at me there, so.
Because I understand. Well, one, it was a funny comment on the other side, but two, I mean, that's a problem. That's a problem. Is that there are things that we make that we would love to make into a business. We would like to do, but the reality is,
so
there was someone on. Wait, Beaver. This is a great story, connection, because and I think it's important. Beaver wood finish from Canada. They messaged me today because I'd shared a story from another page. I forget what they're called. Vineyard Woodworks. And Beaver messaged me and said, "You know what's funny about that is we started a Vineyard Woodworks last year with the idea of making platters from barrels, but it failed. We didn't go anywhere. And that's the thing, like coming back to you talking about I've lost more races than I've won. There's a lot of businesses that don't succeed, but you need to change where you are and what you're looking at. That's like me thinking I was going to sell tables and I'm selling jigs.
And that's the beauty of it. And I like that. So, and then you kind of fell into your niche, and that's what we do. So I didn't fall into
Yeah.
mine. Sorry, I fell into mine. I didn't just like one day wake up and like, I'm going to do this. And I just did that. That's not how it works. I got in like at one point, man, I had so much crap in my cupboards because I was like, I'm going to make this. I'm going to make this. And I was buying all these little trinkets and things off Amazon and
Yeah.
trying to make. And then I just, that one day I said, I have to get rid of it. I had to get rid of it. I had to do an Adam Barnett and just go, fire sale. It's all done. And because that's just the way it is. So like, if you cannot, like, I'll use a basic model, and this works for furniture. It doesn't work for retail in the sense of clothing and other things. But when you make something, if you're going to retail it, you should look towards an 80% profit margin. Okay. No.
Really?
Okay. Yes. And I'll tell you why. That's not crazy. So if you make something that's $100, you're going to charge 180 retail. Okay. Now, if you make something and you're going to do it in bulk, you're going to, for $100, you're going to charge 160 because they're not reselling it. It's bulk. It's a bulk order. Now, if it's a wholesale order, what's a reseller, then you're going to do 40. Now, these numbers can move. Obviously, they can move depending on the product, depending on what you need and what you want, and depending on how much you like time and his effort is put into these things. Because and if you can't model it to a degree in that kind of like in those cohorts, you're going to have a hard time unless all you're going to do is retail, and you know that you're going to go business to client always, B2C always. Then you're like, okay, well, I can just make 20%. I can make 20 points. That's it. And you're going to be always making 20 points out of your garage. But if you want to do an order of like 500, let's say like when I did 140 cutting boards, you can't do that if you're only making 20 points because
Right.
your time is going to be completely saturated.
Right.
Now I'm using these numbers because they're just easy to work with. Now, 25 points is the standard in epoxy for wholesale, things like this. So, and then there's the markup on the other side for the retailers and the sellers, etc. But every business is different. Now, cutting boards, I got lucky with this order, and I'll tell you, oh right. My brother-in-law was one of the people that was integral in it. He's not the owner of the company, but he's one of the directors, and he said, I was going to sell some other stuff from another company as a seller. And he goes, no, well, my brother-in-law does really good woodworking projects. And the owner was like, I want a woodworking project. So when he saw what I did, that's what he wanted. I said, okay, well, this is your price. And my brother-in-law goes, I basically said $60 a board. He goes, well, my budget was 70, so let's just do 70. And then if something could, just in case, And so he actually, because that $10 per board, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add 140 boards, that shot my profit margin up past where I gave him the number that I was comfortable with based off of me doing all the work myself in the shop and not having a job. That was going to be my job. So when I took a full-time job, I could afford to have somebody else do most of the milling and still actually even make them profit on that milling. And he gave me that ability. So he gave me a bit of a gift too, but I still would have made a lot of money on those boards because of that model. So, and that model wasn't 80, 60, 40. It was more like 75, 65, 35, but.
Well, I think it's hard. I mean, pricing things is difficult no matter what, and my wife and I had an argument. I don't want to say an argument, a disagreement, because I gave a price for something to people she knows, and she's like, well, that you're overcharging for that. I'm like, no, I'm charging appropriately
Absolutely.
For the amount of work.
And
I
honestly, in my opinion, I think you undercharge a lot, but it works for you. It works for you. It works for you.
Well, it does. I mean, I get annoyed with myself, and I undercharge on a lot of different things, and that's because I don't value myself enough, and I'm able to recognize that, and that's something I have to work on. But anyway, I think
I'll just
the
I
hard
just
part.
want to point one out. This was locally sourced wood too, so that's why the margins are different. Now, if I was to buy exotic woods, I
Yeah,
can't just mark
yeah,
that up another like I couldn't just sell these for $300 a board. Just nobody would buy it. So that's the other thing that you kind of have to go with the region you're in. So let's say ashwood is really, really, really cheap in your area. Think about
right.
that over another wood. So just
Well, I mean, that's always there's. So again, there's two things I want to do here. First of all, I think that depending on where you're working out of, like you said, you could afford to do it because you were working the other job and doing this, so you had money coming in. So whenever you have this as a side job, as you well know, versus whenever it's your main job, there's a big difference
absolutely.
in what you're
But
going to
I
accept.
did take a 50% deposit, and you always should do that. And this was from a
Yeah,
reputable person, but you still need to do that.
yeah. I've been bad about that in the past, and I especially, and again, this comes back to the fact that I am now depending more upon this income than I was in the past. That now I'm starting to do that more. So anyway, the other important thing is, and I've said this many times, it is regional. What
Absolutely.
like I made a table one time, and a friend of mine looked at this table and like, that's gorgeous. That is a $2,500 table. This is a one of a kind. And I said, I will not sell it for that. I might be in the right area, but I don't have that clientele. I don't have connections for people who will buy it. And I wound up selling it for $1,300. But I honestly got really lucky. And the woman who bought it from me displays it underneath their Picasso. So they have a Picasso. So
Wow. Oh, that
yeah,
is a really cool
yeah,
story. So then you can go
right.
back to
So,
those
but
things where, sorry, go ahead.
it depends on where you are, right? So, and all of that. So come
And
back
some of
to
these
you.
projects are going to be at a bit of a financial loss for a future gain. For example, like let's say the Picasso thing. Well, if this woman has a Picasso, she probably has friends she's going to come over and go, look at this amazing table that this guy made me. Oh, who's the guy? Logan Newman Woodworks. So uh, th- they're gonna be like, call you
Yeah,
up. So it word of mouth business is one of the most like let's say like coherent strong businesses you're ever going to get like just coming off Google, you're going to be like it's like Facebook. Anybody sell anything on
yeah,
Facebook Marketplace? Hey, is this still available? Crickets, right? So
yeah.
but when somebody is like, this guy is really good, they're more likely, well, I need a table, I'm going to him. I already know this guy through another person. Sounds like he's good. So it's important. So sometimes you take a bit of a loss on those things. When I say
Yeah.
this cutting board project and those numbers, these are general ideas. These are not set in stone because I will move on something. If I have to make something super fancy and I'm gonna spend a lot of time working on this and I'm gonna make very little money on it, but I know that I'm saying that this is something that this person is going to take, and I'm going to say, look, I'm going to give you this price. Don't tell anybody that that was the price. I
Right.
will, because it's kind of like a demo, let's say, or not a demo, but like a
No,
learning experience,
no.
and then I'm going to readjust the pricing accordingly. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But they will they're always you're always going to win on the back end, and that's the important thing. You're always going to win on the back end because let's say that they're like, I need a table. Well, I can make it for this. Oh, I can't afford it right now, but actually I need a cutting board too. So, oh, I can make you a cutting board, and then they're okay with the price. So you're always going to win on the back end.
It's tough. I want to come back to Mortis and Hare said something here, and I want to talk about that for a second. He says spot on about the regional thing, but I'd also say what you charge is what you're worth. And I want to tell a story here. Um, so I last year was as in value is not arbitrary what you when you're established. So this is dealing not with woodworking with content creation, but it's similar idea, and I think it's an interesting story. Last year, I was approached by a clothing company who wanted a price from me to do stuff, and I gave them a price of I think I don't remember, but it was low. It was probably $1,200, and I said, I would like to do this. Here's this price. Let me know, and I never heard from them. But I saw two other friends of mine who I talked to, both of whom charged significantly more significantly more. And that company went with them because their higher price showed that they had, in my experience or my mind, showed that they had a better understanding of their worth and and the better belief in what they were going to do. So I thought that was interesting. It drives me nuts.
There's a balance to this. Okay, it's like everything in the world. There's a balance. It's yin and yang. But if you go online and you go on Etsy, and you know this, we all go on Etsy, we all go on Pinterest, and we look. Oh my God, that cutting board is being sold for $30. There's no way I can make it for that much. And then you see another one that's being like sold for 500. It's similar. Like, oh my God, I could never charge that much, right? There's a balance in there, and for sure that $30 board isn't worth its like weight at all. Okay, for the most part. Sometimes yes, maybe because of maybe where they're making it, and they're like maybe they sourced the wood and they got free wood. Okay, but like as a content creator and as a maker, we all get free products. So let's just say Total Boat sends me a batch of epoxy for free. So then when I sell my boards that have epoxy in them, I don't include the price in it. Well, that's an idiot thing to do for me on my behalf, because the second I start having to pay for epoxy,
Right.
then I have to eat that cost, because I can't just all of a sudden go, boom, the price jumps up. I'm not getting free shit anymore. Sorry. Well, because that's the reality of what we do. Our free ride doesn't last. Like, it never lasts. Like, there's very few people that get to work for companies or with companies for a very long period of time. I've been lucky. I've worked with a few companies for a very long period of time, and I've been lucky with that. But I also don't ask for a lot, and I don't expect a lot. I give a lot, and I think that's why companies like to work with me. But I don't price in free stuff, because that will end. Now that can be a bonus for me, and all that does is it allows me to return that that amount of money back into creative projects, the ones that don't make any money, the ones that are, these guys, and I'm able to do those and have fun and share those on Instagram and do that kind of stuff. So it's companies that actually help me.
So that actually brings us back. That brings us back to your journey as a content creator and a maker, because whenever you have someone supporting you, you're able to do the fun things, and that's absolutely true. So I do want to make sure again, to everybody who's on the Instagram, next week I'm live with Mark Adams. So it'll be next Thursday again. The week after that is going to be Morgan Hopp, and the week after that is Larissa Huff. I got
nice lineup.
I got a whole crew lined up.
That's a nice lineup.
Yeah, I got a lot of good people. So there's a lot of good stuff here. I think business. I've said this time and again. I'm a terrible businessman. I really am.
I wouldn't say I'm a good one.
Joe, Joe just recognized JL Vino. I don't know how to say it.
JVL.
Just yelled out your name.
Right?
Yeah, but JVL. Oh, I'm pretty not smart. But I'm a terrible businessman. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Is I hate doing business. I just want to make stuff.
You're an inventor.
Eric, thanks
you are an inventor.
Being here. I would much. I got to be honest. I've been making this cabinet for people here. This is what I've been working on this week, and it's really just driving me nuts. I would much rather just spend time creating and putting things together than making something like that. I really just want to have fun.
The most successful people in the entire world, Logan, they always have a right arm. Okay, come on. I'm going to use like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger as an example. Okay, like there's always somebody that helps.
Right-hand man. Wait, you mean a right-hand man
or a right-hand woman? Like it's just somebody. It can be, and it can be your wife. It can be somebody or your husband, somebody that supports you. That's all it has to be. But there has to be somebody behind the scenes that is giving you something that's allowing you to succeed. So your focus, well, it's not your focus. Like, well, maybe it is, but your strength is creation. You're a jig master. You're a very good inventor. Okay, you're able to take things and you're able to picture them in your mind and create something that is functional for everybody in the community. Okay, that's your strength. You don't have to be the best businessman because that's your strength. Now, if you ever want to market that to a very, very, very high level, then you need a business partner that is good
Right.
on the other end that you can trust. But I mean, I don't know if you're there, but maybe.
Well, I mean, I could if I with some of the stuff. Doesn't matter. Anyway, doesn't matter. Right. So I've enjoyed the talk with you because that's what I wanted to talk about. So I wanted to hear more. I wanted more people to hear more of your story. Talk about why you have uh, Olympic rings tattooed on the inside of your arm. Right.
You know, the
Um,
funny
so
story is Adam Barnett, who's a friend of mine too, a friend of ours. Um,
yeah.
he thought until this year at Maker Camp, he's like, I just thought it was a big joke. I didn't really realize that you went to 2 Olympic Games. He's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Well,
don't
I
really,
mean,
I mean, I mention it, but I don't really like go into a lot of detail about it all the time. But
well, what are you gonna do? Talk? Yeah. Well, when I was in the
yeah,
Olympics, you saw
they're like,
that's
we're
every
at
video.
woodworking
I was
here,
in
you
the
know, we're
Olympics.
at woodworking conference here. So
When I was in the Olympics, I didn't have the ability to glue up cutting boards like I do with the RS Tools clamp.
exactly.
When I was in the Olympics, I forgot my total boat. So,
I couldn't repair my
no,
kayak, which is actually kind of funny because,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. When I was in high school, yeah, I don't think I've told anybody this story. I don't know. Uh,
is this a band camp
I
story?
just coming back to this. No, no. Uh, I was not in high school. Actually, I was in the Navy. I came home to visit, and my sister was still in high school. And this comes back to being a maker and being a part of just someone who enjoys working with their hands. My sister was in a theater. Was in theater in high school, and their play was going on, and she comes out to the auditorium during intermission, and she says, "I need you to come backstage with me. Part of the set broke, and I don't have anybody who can fix it. I need you to come back and fix it." So I was there with some girl too. I distinctly remember I was like, I'm gonna go fix this, I guess. And I went back and fixed a piece of the set during the play so that they could go on the second
How good does
act.
that make you feel too?
So yeah, I enjoy making things. So anyway, Ryan, I enjoyed having you on here. I truly, truly appreciate it. Uh, where would you like to be in 5 years? What is your 5 years plan?
Um, I think I'd have to say that if I look back 5 years and ask myself the same question, I would say, am I where I want to be right now? And the answer is no, because but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I accelerated my 5 year plans. I've been in some situations where I had a 5 year plan and it was done in a year, and then I had some situations where a 5 year plan or a 1 year plan is taking longer. So that's a long answer to that story, but the short answer is I see myself hopefully much more involved in the community, hopefully teaching more to the community. With my current job, I am in sport, but it's going to allow me to travel a little bit, and hopefully that allows me to. And there, so basically, I'm a project and facility manager. I'm building out baseball and multi-sport stadiums and facilities, turf, batting cages, pickleball courts, all this kind of stuff. We're just starting this. We're getting into it. I've got 5 or 6 projects coming up in this summer to build out big projects. Um, uh, I'm part of that company, but hopefully that allows me to get to the point where I have more time to do this kind of stuff. And this company wants me to be involved in that. They're excited about the CNC. They're like, they can't wait. They're like, okay, can you make us some signs? We'll commission you for it. I've literally like, I've got 12 balls right here to engrave on the We Create laser
Yeah,
to basically customize balls for different uh, schools and stuff.
yeah,
And I didn't realize how many balls that people really need. They're ordering 55 dozen at a time, you know, like crazy amounts. So it's like that they'll have them personalized. So it's like there's opportunities there. That'll allow me to get more involved in the community. I would like to do more Maker Camp types of things. I'm back at Maker Camp no matter what, unless unless Trump doesn't let me cross the border. That's the only way that I'm not coming in. But all my people are there, and that kind of stuff. That's where I see myself. I see myself being involved in the community and being able to make sure that, like, in a sense, I'm gonna paraphrase, plant a tree that I will never enjoy the shade of, so that younger generations can enjoy this craft to whatever degree they can, whether it's dying or whether it's growing. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be there. This creation with your hands. So hopefully that answers the question.
It does. You want to be more involved and you want to have more fun making more stuff. Right?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, listen, I again, thanks for being here. Everyone on Instagram, thanks for coming in. Everyone on YouTube, it'll be live on YouTube, so you can come back and watch it. Anything you want to say before I click off?
Yeah, I will leave everybody with this. Okay. Always put yourself in a position to receive luck. Okay. Always, always, always.
I like that. All right. Don't go